Dear students of B.Ed 4th Sem, welcome you all in this online discussion forum. Today's discussion will be on Unit 3 of Course 6, that is on gender, school and society. In this discussion, our focus will be on a broader understanding of sex and gender. In other words, we will try to negotiate gender and sex. These two terms are related terms and they are also much confusing in nature. They are confusing, intriguing, and the very title also indicates. And now it must be remembered at this point that these two terms are much discussed. That means it is not that we are discussing it for the first time. This has been discussed, numerous articles, papers have been written on it, yet they are rather confusing terms. I must tell you at this point that earlier, when we are supposed to fill those forms, there was a column, it was written gender. Nowadays, that has been replaced with the term sex. So, we can easily understand from this thing that these two terms are confusing. And we will try to discuss one by one so that we can get one holistic understanding of the two terms. As you all are grown-up students, you all know that sex is biologically determined. Rather, or better say, sex is determined at the time of our very birth. So make it very clear that sex is determined at the time of our very birth. So sex is fixed or determined at the time of our initiation into this world. And I hope there is no confusion about it. Okay. Now we are moving to the other interesting term. And as I have earlier mentioned, better say that is the intriguing term gender. This term is confusing because gender, which we often actually interchange with sex, is an umbrella term, and there are other various terms that are actually related to gender. And because of these manifold terms, our understanding of gender becomes complex in nature. If we see, those related terms are actually cisgender, agender, androgynous, bigender, genderqueer, gender non-conforming. So you can easily understand that when there are so many terms are used, so quite logically they can create confusion in our mind. So first, cisgender, what is that? It is actually whose gender identity matches the sex that they were assigned at birth. Once again I am repeating that cisgender means that person at the time of her birth, say for example, he was a boy. So when he will grow up, he will automatically play the very role of a boy. On the other hand, if that was a girl, with course of time, when she will grow up, she will become a female mentally. So that means cisgender means whose gender identity matches the sex that they were assigned at birth. The other relevant terms are, I have mentioned agender, androgynous, bigender, genderqueer, gender non-conforming, gender conforming and gender non-conforming. So, who is an agender? This term is used for those people whose gender identity and expression does not align with man, woman or any other gender. That means another similar term which is used to describe agender is gender neutral. The next term which I have mentioned is androgynous. What that means? It means it is actually presenting as neither obviously masculine nor feminine. Bigender, once again, gender identity encompasses both man and woman. Genderqueer, once again, what is that? A term for people who reject notions of static categories of gender and they embrace a fluidity of gender identity. So this phrase is of very relevant. What is that? Fluidity of gender identity. Mark this very phrase, fluidity of gender identity. Fluidity means which is actually not static. While we were discussing sex, I mentioned that sex is determined at the very time of our birth, but gender is something fluid. It can actually change with the course of time. And in society, we see that actually the gender roles of women and men are socially and culturally constructed. And such roles can change over time and vary according to geographic location and social context. So once again, what I am highlighting is the fluidity of gender identity. So what is fluid? That becomes very difficult to understand, because fluidity means that may change with course of time. So this fluidity of the identity creates confusion in our mind, and in our syllabus this construction of gender has been given room so that we can change or rectify the mistakes of our past. And here, education is considered the most peaceful means by which we can transform society. So, I hope that from this little discussion, you can have formed an idea about sex and gender. In our next discussion, we will try to elaborate it in another manner. Thank you all.